Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So thrilled that you're here. I am excited. I'm going to be doing another interview. I know, 2 in 1 day. But I've got Chris Lester here, and I couldn't miss the opportunity to talk to Chris about all that she's learned from. We actually had a chance to work together one-on-one, as well as what she's learned from my book. And I'm excited about what she's been building. It's an amazing organization. She's the founder of Newborn Touch Community Inc., which is a nonprofit dedicated to helping babies cry less, sleep more, and flourish as they developed, which is, as a parent, all the things I want for my kid. She was kind enough to both read my book and write a review for it. So the book is Small List, Big Results, Launch a Successful Offer No Matter the Size of your email list. And here is her Amazon review. She says, take it from someone who reads the last chapter first. The Big Results Toolkit offered at the end of Small List, Big Results is packed with exceptional content to help you analyze, automate, refocus, and rejuvenate through each step of the way. I've learned to expect amazing content from anything Robbie Samuels creates. These tools are over the top. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that amazing review. And just so that people know, this is how people can get access to that Big Results Toolkit. I'll let that scroll for a minute. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. I am really glad to be here. And I read your book in one sitting.
Wow. Yeah. So it's easy to consume. I imagine that you took a ton of notes along the way and that you're going to keep going back to it.
Nope. I went straight to the toolkit.
Straight to the toolkit. So the toolkit's
Yeah, no,
giving you the action
I read
steps.
it online. I was
Yep.
familiar with a lot of the work that you've been doing over the past couple of years. And I wanted to just sit back with a cup of coffee and just read your book cover to cover without all the usual with all of that. So I read it online. But then I did start with the end. I did start with the toolkit. So I printed a couple of the toolkit components, and then after I read your book, then I started. I grabbed the pen and pencil and highlighter and all of that, and just kind of went to
Yeah.
town.
So what are some of the concepts in the book that particularly stood out for you?
Well, I was thinking a couple of minutes ago. This thing kind of popped in my head that Robbie, what you did for me is that you turned a minefield into a playground. And it was such a minefield for me. Just this idea of trying to make my lists and figure out who's on first and what's on second. And even after I read your book, I could see that you had broken it down into digestible pieces that I would be able to do bit by bit. And I loved that structure because it's very doable. It felt that I could take a few steps forward, step away from it for a little while, and come right back in and pick right up where I left off. And that's not true with a lot of other programs that I've been involved in.
Yeah, and I know that you had been working on a list even before reading the book, and you showed me a little show and tell about what was that like for you before, and what is it like for you now?
I did. So I didn't have a small list. I had a tiny list. So last year I did a training. So I've been doing newborn touch. I've been teaching newborn touch to families in transition from pregnancy to parenting for quite a number of years. I've trained probably over 300 people. But I decided when the pandemic started and we went into kind of lockdown mode, I decided it was time to train instructors, because if we're going to go on the internet, then it couldn't just always
Not
just be
enough,
me.
right.
So I wanted to train instructors. So last year I trained about 40 instructors. About 30 of them were super active, and another 10 were kind of in and out of the program. But that was my small list. And so so I'm going to give you a confession here, Robbie. My list was not small, and it wasn't time for me to kind of you know wake up my network. I had ignored my network, and I'm not proud to say that publicly.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're not the only one. Thank you for saying it, because I think other people need to hear that it's possible to do this even when your network is the last thing you've been thinking about for the last decade.
Right. Yes. And all kinds of reasons. I could blame the pandemic all night and day. But the truth of it was, we finished the course right before Christmas, and then Christmas happened, and then this happened, and then that happened. And I kept feeling, quite honestly, Robbie, I kept feeling kind of embarrassed. Okay, now it's been 2 months. What do I say to them? Ooh, it's been 6 months. Now,
Hmm.
what do I say? Okay, now I'm really professionally embarrassed because they haven't heard a peep out of me for 9 months. But when I read your book, it did motivate me to just push up my sleeves. And so I sent one email. I did the course in partnership with another nonprofit. And so I asked the nonprofit to send one email simply asking if they would like to get together on Zoom for content and connection. And that's
Mm,
another phrase that I have lifted from you,
mhm.
is to offer people, if they're going to take a minute to sign on with me, then I'm going to promise them that they're going to leave with content and connection. And over half of the participants signed up.
Wow.
So that immediately warmed my list. And what I had been working on was the printout that my partner nonprofit group had given me, and you can see just all the little squiggles, and I'm trying to figure out, and the orange means something, and the yellow means something, and the brown means something. So some people finished the course, some people didn't finish the course. Um, some people didn't even show up for any of the modules. So it was just this, really, honestly, a hot mess. So what I did was I took I had to print it out because, I'm one of those who really likes to have my hands on it. So I printed out the Wake Up Your Network
Oh my gosh,
notebook.
that is so beautiful.
Isn't
Hold
that
that up.
pretty? $5
Oh,
at Office Depot,
that's
$5. So they even did
amazing.
the little slick cover and, a firm back so I could prop up in bed and work on it if I wanted to. So
Amazing.
yeah, so I did that, and I've got some little thingies that I can share with you in just a minute. But the result was then this absolutely pristine little concise list. And what helped so much was, Robbie, I was able to customize your ideas for the spreadsheet. And what I did was I decided that my participants would get an A if they completely finished the course, did every module, had high engagement on the learning management system, lots of comments, things like that. I put an A, and then I put a B if they were, finished but didn't really comment a lot. So I kind of made that column my own. And then when I went in and organized the column, then I was able to kind of see my super users. And those are the ones that I'm going to be connecting with to help complete the Newborn Touch Essentials course. Yes, it's so much easier to work with. And then the others, when I get those little quiet moments here and there, I can just pop down to them and say, hey, let me just do a little check-in, see how they're doing. I'm
What's
going to make it
amazing
very.
is this allowed you to surface the people who were, as you call them, your super users, your super fans, to
Mhm.
really reach out to them about continuing to engage with you without having to give equal weight, equal attention to people who hadn't even opened the course.
Right. Right. Yes. And that's where that thing popped in my mind, that what you did was turn a minefield into a playground,
Mhm.
because I allowed about 2 hours for that whole 7-step process in your Wake Up Your Network program, and it took me less than an hour, and I had fun.
And you're giving an
Yeah.
example of, like, where you get your list from initially really can vary greatly. I mean, we've talked about some people are using LinkedIn, some people are using Facebook. You're using people who actually you had done something with. They had signed up to work with you in some capacity, but you're still trying to figure out, who do I continue to nurture and what does that pathway forward look like? And I love also the way you adapted the list to meet your needs. I was trying to, give people tools, but then give them the way for them to construct it the way it makes sense for their own business. So that, I mean, it's a really great example of you taking the book and then applying it for what you're doing next. And it sounds like you do have a plan for next, and these conversations are taking place. Let's talk for a minute, actually, though, about launches, and particularly your experience with my book launch. I imagine you've been on other book launches. Have you been on other book launches?
I've been around them, but never
Yeah.
as intimately involved as yours. So yes, I have been involved in book launches, but
Well, most
it's
are not like
basically kind of
mine.
show up day of sort of
Yeah.
involvement.
So what was your experience with my book launch, the experience of being on the launch team?
Well, I loved how you gently held us all accountable. So
Mm,
you invited me to be on your book launch team, which I thought was great, and I was excited about it. But then you actually expected me well, I knew you needed me to read your book, wanted, were inviting me to read. So, so that was a given. And then to review, I was real clear on that. So you made it very clear what you were asking me to do. But then you also built in some of that soft accountability where you actually expected me to do the book, to do the work. And several times early on in the process, you would say things like, I don't want you to just buy the book. I want you to use the book, that you were far more interested in the application than in just giving it a quick read and a couple of sentences. So I liked that, and it did make me put time on my calendar to say, all right, here's some time where I'm actually going to spend a few minutes with it and kind of get a game plan going. And that's when I decided to go ahead and print it and have it bound at Office Depot so that I could actually work with it, stubby pencil style.
I love it. Yeah, this idea of being held through a process has been coming up a lot as people talk about the launch experience of working with me. I do believe that people set an intention, and then it's our job to help people follow through with those intentions, since it's definitely a bigger deal in our life than in their life when they say yes to things. And I am clear that I want people to actually use the book, like actually experience the book, because a book like this will be passed around word of mouth only if people use it, right? Like if you download it, that's not going to help. If you download it and write a review, but you do it by just reading the first and last page, that's not going to help. So it's your experience working with this book, and anytime we've written a book that has that kind of profound value and built in, that's where you really want to create some sort of mechanism to encourage that. And one of the things we did, just to kind of pull back the curtain, is that we had the book advanced copy went out on October 5th, and October 12th, our mutual friend Mary Williams, she hosted a librarian-led book club discussion, which was a really fun way for anyone who had already in that week. We sort of said, here's your week to read the book, then actively participate in the library discussion, the book club discussion. Those folks were able to then get the mic and share their experience. And then there were people who went to that and hadn't read the book. Now they were really inspired to read the book based on other people's
Absolutely.
reactions. And then 3 days later was when we first asked people to submit their reviews to us in advance. So it sort of, we wanted to build in some urgency, and I think most people who do book launches just, they ask
You did
once.
that, and the good thing about it was kind of like you put out. You didn't tell me everything that was going to happen at once. I would have been overwhelmed if I'd gotten the Robbie email that said, "Okay, and then this is going to happen, and then a couple of days later, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen." So you gave me just enough so that I knew what to expect in the next, I don't know, 72 hours or so. And then once I took that next step, then you gave me just enough to kind of let me know, what the opportunities were and the invitation. And
Yeah.
so it was really a great step by step process. And I felt very much, and still do feel very much, a part of the launch team. These are my people. This is my book.
I love that you say that, because that's how I feel too. I'm like, we achieved blank, because
This
I
is
didn't
our
buy all the
book.
books. I didn't write all those reviews. Like, we did that collectively. Like, tried to create a container for it to happen, but other people joined me in that experience. You were also part of my 3-day training in a couple of ways. So 2 weeks after the official book launch date, so the official book launch date was October 31st. By that point, I think I had 113 reviews. Within the next week, it ended up over 150. It's now over 160 something. But I had this 3 2-hour sessions planned for 2 weekends later. And that was to dive deeper into the content. And it also led to an offer. And you were kind enough to come be one of my success stories of someone that I had coached and who was able to share a bit about your experience. But you also showed up as a participant, which I thought was awesome. So what was your experience attending that, and how it sort of related to the fact that you'd read the book and you were now part of this community of people?
Well, what I loved about that process was that it was a little bit for me to digest, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then for the 3-day time period, I was able to really just kind of put my focus in a deeper way. So it allowed me to do a bit of a deeper dive 3 consecutive days. So I felt 2 hours was just the right amount of time, to get some content, to get some juices going, to get some ideas from some of the other participants, and then to have another swath of my day to go back and apply things and take it a couple steps further. So I felt like it was very, that metaphor about the elephant, you can't eat the whole thing. You have to just eat one little bite at a time. So
Yeah.
it also reminded me that about a couple months into the pandemic, I remember reading a statistic that said that that we're only really focusing about 30% of our attention, once the pandemic started and we were all sheltering. And so what you did with that 3-day window was you gave me a chance to really take a look at my bandwidth and say,
Yeah.
I can focus on this and this alone for 2 hours and then 2 hours the next day. So I felt like that was a good way to, to kind of roll it all out. And again, the team, the participants I learned so much from the participants too. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so like you said, the whole piece about content and connection, the first 2 days in particular, we had a lot of breakout rooms, giving people the opportunity to get to know other participants in that space. And I guess anyone who's watching and thinking about their own book launch, like, when I was writing the book and thinking about the launch of the book, all these pieces sort of started to fall into place and take shape. And then we sort of added things as we thought of them. But I absolutely knew that I was going to lead from the book into an offer. And I knew it was going to be a big offer. And I knew that it was going to be not for everybody. And so the results is that 3 people signed up for my year-long program. And that was a $15,000 offer. So that was not an inexpensive offer. And I had about 35 people live each day, 35, 40 people. And then a total, including people who watched the replay, about 70, 75 people who watched the replay. So there's still way more people who signed up that didn't come, because that's what Zoom is like. So I have to find out what happened with those people. But the conversion rate was actually very high, considering how few people I had there. And that's something we talked about over the weekend, is to understand conversion rates and what's possible. So now my team and I were talking about the next steps and how do you continue to add value. So we are going to be offering, and I talked to you a little bit about this another time, but we are putting together a 12-week module that is 12 weeks to your irresistible offer, which is basically to walk people through all the steps of the Wake Up Your Network book and the research calls and analyzing the problem language and figuring out what your pilot is and inviting people to be in your pilot and sort of like stepping through that experience with a cohort of people. And it's a module because it's actually the first 12 weeks of the year-long program, but people can separately join it, just do that part. And that was sort of another way of sort of invite people into the process. And if they're really excited and ready at the end, they could always opt into doing more stuff with the rest of the community going forward and be part of the masterminds. But to kick all that off, we are going to offer that 3 days again in January, specifically leading to that 12-week program, because
Oh,
people were
great
like, wow,
idea.
that was so much value, and yeah, good stuff. So look forward to that. And and it's sort of another way to like take time out of your schedule and, like you said, focus on your business.
Right, right, yeah. And then, there's 3 things that come to mind that I appreciate about that whole process. And one is that you really listen to your to whoever shows up. You do some really deep listening, and then you modify and adjust, staying within your parameters. So that's awesome. And secondly, the way you just lift the curtain and show the sausage being made behind the scenes.
Yeah.
um, it makes it feel doable for me.
Yep.
It's like, well, I can do that, that I could write a book, I could put together a launch team, that so it's a really powerful way to inspire. I feel inspired by what you're doing. And the third thing that I appreciate, Robbie, is that you always are upfront. I'm going to be giving you an offer at the end of the deal. It's going to cost this much. And, there's no 0.97 thing, there's not that little 3-penny thing. And there's just some things about the way that you, it seems to flow very naturally, that, it feels authentic. And also, let me add a fourth one, if I may. a fourth one is that you make it very easy to opt out. You know, it's I've been in lots and lots of other programs, and when you get to the point where the offer is being made, sometimes there's a little bit of emotion wrapped around, oh, are you really not going to step up and do this? So I appreciate those qualities about this whole process that I've been in with you the last couple of months.
These are all great things to point out and underscore because I think when we name it, other people can think about how they can apply it to their own business. And I said that I was going to be helping people experience what does an invitation look like that is empowering. Like we want to invite people to participate. We're not here to coerce. There's no emotional heartstring pull. I actually truly believe that an educated prospect is my ideal prospect, that a person who understands what's possible, understands their role and the work they have to do themselves. I'm not like going to blow smoke and say it's magic and and you'll make six figures and never have to lift a finger. Like the people better
Mhm.
understand their role in creating that magic. And I think, I'm just a little outside of reach of what other people are doing. And so I think it does serve people to see kind of how I'm thinking about this and how we're kind of figuring our way through. I mean, my first group coaching pilot was in 2017, and 3 people signed up. One, I made an arrangement for us to swap services, so there was no payment involved, and 2 paid $500 each. So 3 people, $1,000 for a 5-week program. And here I am 4 years later. I just sold 3 people, and I made $50,000 from a 12-week program. So
Mhm.
totally doable, but you have to know about all the work I did in the 4 years in between and the 6 years prior to
Absolutely.
that, right? Like it's
Right.
not like it just happened. And I do think us sharing our successes and our challenges is how we grow together. And too often, it's like we're not allowed to do that. So, thank you so much just for sharing your highlights, your insights. I think underscoring that is really helpful for other people. I love to be the inspiration for what you're doing. And how can people find you and follow your work? What's the best way for people to connect if they're interested in learning more?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Lester 904. 904 is my area code. And so Chris Lester 904. And then just happy to give you my email. I'm doing this very slow and no whiz bang. But my email is clester904@gmail.com. And the courses that I'm offering help 2 levels. One is a help anyone who's changing a baby's diaper, help that baby cry less and flourish as they develop. And then I'm also building another instructor's course so that people can teach the newborn touch and essentials.
That's brilliant.
So I am hugely committed to democratizing the skills that I learned when I worked in the newborn intensive care unit and thought, oh my gosh, I wish I'd known this when my babies were born.
Awesome.
Everyone who changes a baby's diaper should be able to have those skills with them. So that's my passion. So Robbie,
Well,
thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
I'm so happy you're able to join us. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Chris.